Shabbat Shalom. Nice to see everybody here. Welcoming everybody who is at home as well on this beautiful Shabbat morning. If you're at home watching, you can click on the description on YouTube and it will bring up the prayer book, and we will announce page numbers in 2 different numbers just in case the version you are using is different. We're going to begin with Ma Tovu 192 or 74 in your Siddurim. Let's all join together in the Birkot Nisim B'chol Yom 198 or page 80. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sachvi bina lahavchin ben yom uvein laila, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim, who opens the eyes of the blind. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim, who frees the captive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim, who lifts up the fallen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim, who stretches the earth over the waters. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechim mitza'adei gaver, who strengthens our steps. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim, who clothes the naked. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten layav koach, who gives strength to the weary. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'enai unuma me'afapai, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani b'tzelem Elohim, who made me in the image of God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorin, who has made me free. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael, who has made me a Jew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura, who girds Israel with strength. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael betifara, who crowns Israel with splendor. Let's all turn now to Chatzi Kaddish, which can be found on 224 or 106. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba be'amad yivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'gala uv'izman kariv imru amen yehesh me Rabba mevorach Le'olam le'omei omaya Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'par v'traman v'itnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei Kehilah brichu le'olam min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'ama v'imru amen. We stand for the call to worship, 226 or 108. Barechu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch to God for the morning. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or vorech choshech oseh shalom vorech et hakol hameir la'aretz v'la'arim alecha barachamim uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai ulam b'chochma asita ma'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha tiparach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha va'al me'orei or she'asita yafa'arucha selah or chadash al Tzion ta'ir v'niskechu lanu mehera le'oro Baruch atah Adonai yotzer hameorot. Let's read together in the middle of 231 or 113. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said, and light blinded we saw that inner and outer worlds are one, as you are one. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us as we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Shem kevod malchuto seated. We continue with V'ahavta, page 234 or 116. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam Beshivtecha, beveitecha, uvelechtecha, vaderech, uvshochtecha, uvkumecha, ukshartam leot ayadecha, vayuletotafot beinenecha, uchtavtam, amezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tiskeru, vasitem ekol mitzvotai, Vitem kedoshim le'elohechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet. Let's continue together on the top of 239 or 121. Emet, there is no place where you are not, even in the wilderness there is your word. Emet, that pen strokes of lightning, white fire, black flame, stir the soul's passion, guide our sacred way. True and enduring is Torah. Your truth for us is certain and established, now and forevermore. Like Moses, Miriam, and all Israel, we sing out and rejoice. Page 240 or 122. Yam bam bam bim bim bam yaba ba ba bim bam yam bam bam bim bim bam yaba ba ba bim bam ai da 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 yaba ba ba bim bam ai da 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 yaba ba ba bim bam mi chamocha baili Adonai mi chamocha nedar bakodesh Norah tehilot zevele Norah tehilot oh zevele shira chadasha shipchu geulim לשמחה, לשמחה, שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו, והמלכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ים בם בם בים בים בם, יבה בבה בים בם. ים בם בם בים בים בם, יבה בבה בים בם. Ay, da 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 da, ya ba 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 bim bam. Ay, da 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 da, ya ba 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 bim bam. Sur Yisrael, kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, uvdeichenu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch Atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Let's now continue with the Amidah 242, 124. Together, please stand. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Adonai Sebatai Tivta. atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevigula Livnei V'neihem Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'elam Adonai, Mechayeh Kol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayeh Akol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Bal Givurot, Umido Melach, Melech Meimit Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman Atah L'chayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. 248 or 130. Mekadesh et Shimcha Ba'olam, Keshem Shemakdishim Oto B'Shmei Mamro, Kakatuv Ayad Nevi'echa, V'kara Zeh Ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch Ol Haaretz, Kevodo, Adir Adirenu Adonai Adonenu Madir Shimcha B'chol Haaretz, Baruch Kevod Adonai Mikomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu, hu Malkeinu, hu Moshienu ve'hu Yashmienu, berachamav le'enei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Imloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Tzion, ledor vador. Hallelujah. Ledor vador nagid kodecha, ulenetzach netzachim kiddushatcha nakdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated. Yismechu v'malechutecha shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg, am kadshei shvi'i kulam yispeu v'yitangu mituvecha, v'hashvi'i v'atzita bo v'kidashto, chemdat yamim oto karata, zecher lema'aseh v'reishit. Let's join together on the top of 253 or 135. We offer thanks, O God, for this Shabbat, which unites us in faith and hope, for Shabbat holiness, which inspires sacred living, for Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness, for Shabbat peace, born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing, O God. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Let's now take a moment for our own silent prayers on this Shabbat morning. Torah, the service for the reading of Torah. If you're at home and you have a Bible or a Tanakh or a Plout commentary, we're going to be reading from chapter 13 of the book of Numbers, which is the beginning of Shalach Lecha, this week's Parsha. So we're on 979 if you have the Plout commentary. If not, we'll be again chapter 13 of Numbers, verse 1. Oh, page number first. We are on, for Seder Kriyat Torah, 362 or 244. Ein kamocha b'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim u'memshaltecha bechol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed Adonai oz le'amo yitain Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Please stand. Avarachamim etiv avirtzoncha et Zion tivnei chomot Yerushalayim tivnei chomot Yerushalayim ki becha levad batachnu melech el ram v'nisa Adon olamim. 364 and then 366. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Udvar Adonai meYerushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedusha. gadol, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadol Adonai Iti, Uneromema Shemo Yachdav. Feel free to blow kisses to the Torah. Lecha Adonai Hagidula, Hagivura, Hatiferet, Vehaneh. Kicho Bashamayim Uvaretz, Kicho Bashamayim Uvaretz, Lecha Adonai Hamamlacha, V'yamit Naseh Lechol Erosh, Romemu Adonai Elohei, Ve'ishtachavu El Har Kodsho, Romemu Adonai Elohei, Ve'ishtachavu El Har Kodsho. Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. Ki, please be seated. Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. All right. So we are reading again from the beginning of Shalach Lecha, of the Torah portion that has the famous or infamous, depending on how you look at it, story of the scouts or spies, depending on how you want to translate it. And before we read from this week's Parsha, I just wanted to say a few words and finish up some of the stuff that we did not get to finish up during our Torah study session this morning because we got sidetracked in the best of all possible ways with a really great idea and topic that was raised. So I just wanted to get us situated here. And okay, so I will get there in just a moment. I don't know why I am not able to find the beginning of this week's Parsha. I thought I had turned it here, but apparently not so much. Okay. Well, it's in there somewhere. I will get to it in a moment. So the week's Parsha is dedicated in the beginning to the story of the scouts. They are told to enter the land of Israel through the Negev, through the south, head up toward the north to see if the cities are fortified or not, to see if the land is good or not, to see if the soil is good or not, to see if there are armies in fortified cities or the cities being walled, and all of these instructions are given. And we know from the Parsha that the Israelite scouts are appointed by Moses. As we discussed earlier today, those scouts are Moses's and the people's idea, not necessarily God's idea. In fact, we read in one of the commentaries that God actually did not want scouts to be sent. And the reason why is found in chapter 14, probably the reason why it's found in chapter 14. God has faith in us. God has faith in our ancestors, but they do not so much have faith in themselves. At the beginning of chapter 14 of Numbers, if you've got a copy at home, it says, when the spies come back, 10 of them from 10 of the tribes give a very negative report. They say the land is filled with milk and honey. They say that there is abundance of fruit, but they also say the cities are walled, they're fortified, there are giants there. They say that famous line that we saw ourselves like grasshoppers in the presence of the natives, so-called natives of the land. Which means that they had very little self-esteem. That's what it means, we believe, when they say that we saw ourselves as grasshoppers, like little infinitesimal, little itsy-bitsy grasshoppers. And Caleb and Joshua, two of the leaders of the scouting expedition, come back with a great response. No problem. We'll be able to attack. We'll be able to take over. This land of milk and honey we'll be able to occupy. The whole community broke into a loud cry, it says, and the people wept that night. Like they couldn't even sleep after they heard the terrible report. All the Israelites rallied against Moses and Aaron. Go figure. They start their kvetching and quelling against Moses and Aaron, and they say, if only we might die in this wilderness, sort of like if only we had died in the land of Egypt. Why is God taking us to a land where we are all going to get schmeiced? We're all going to die. Schmeiced is not in the Torah. We're all going to die by the sword. Our wives and children are going to be carried off. It would be better for us to go back to Egypt. And they said to one another, let's go back to Egypt. So I think God had intuited that the Israelite response would be this. In other words, the reason why that commentary notes that it was not God's idea to send scouts, but rather Moses' idea, taking care of the people's concern. I would imagine a group of 1 million, 2 million Jews in the desert already complaining. Knowing how Jews work, they would probably be saying to Moses and Aaron, we're not going to that place unless you tell us what it looks like. We want to know what the accommodations are going to be like. I don't like traveling to new places unless I know what it's going to feel like or what it's going to look like. So I would imagine they were all feeling the same. And they still hadn't solidified their faith. They still hadn't solidified, as I talked about last night, they really hadn't used their spirit. They were using their minds instead of their hearts, and did not know really how great God's power was in fulfilling this covenant to go back into the land. And it teaches us something about ourselves on this Shabbat, which is sometimes we do see ourselves like grasshoppers in the eyes of others. In other words, sometimes we worry too much about what other people might think about what we say, what we do, how we think, how we feel, and so we stop ourselves out of a lack of, wouldn't say necessarily out of a lack of self-esteem, but out of a lack of insecurity. Because of insecurity. Because we feel like other people are smarter than us, wiser than us, that they know more, so we're afraid. You remember in school you used to say, I have a stupid question to ask, right? And the teacher would say, there are no stupid questions, except for my algebra teacher, who would say, there are no stupid questions, and then I would ask the questions. He said, wait a minute, I changed my mind. There are stupid questions. That was my algebra teacher. Shows you what kind of algebra student I was. But the point is, remember when we were kids, we would say things like, I have a stupid question, or I don't think this is right, or I'm really probably saying this really stupid, but the Israelites have that same gene that we have, which is uncertainty. But the problem is that they double down and then they triple down on it. They let that fear of the report, first of all, they believe what they hear, and they believe the 10 and not the 2. That is to say, they believe the 10 tribal leaders who are giving them a negative report. They don't believe Joshua and Caleb. It's not like they rally them together. And they're like us. You flip the TV, you watch different shows, you watch different news, you listen to different things, and then you think it's real, it's true, it's all unambiguous. But life is ambiguous, and it requires for us to use that spirit that God gave us, to be like Joshua and Caleb, to not see ourselves like grasshoppers is fine, but then to overcome the little that we feel inside of ourselves, or the smallness that we may feel. Everyone's entitled to their ideas. Everyone's entitled to ask questions. Everyone doesn't know what other people know. Everybody knows different things. And if we know anything from the building of the Mishkan, this was a very diverse group. They were very skilled in different ways. Everyone was able to offer something of value toward the establishment of God's home on earth, if you will. But they weren't able to see themselves in the same light as builders of a future, as aspirational. And so for this complaining and this whining, and especially when God hears over and over and over again, we should die in the desert. Why did you bring us out to the desert? We're going to die in the desert. We should go back to Egypt. God ultimately decides in this week's Parsha, I'm done. I'm going to lead the group to the promised land, but none of them, except for Caleb and Joshua, none of them will be able to enter the promised land. They don't get it now. They didn't get it when they built the golden calf. They're not going to get it when we get to the land of Israel. Let's bring them, but let's let their children and their grandchildren and Caleb and Joshua only enter the land. It's almost like God wants the newest edition, the best edition possible of the Jew, the newest Jew to go into ultimately Jericho, which is in this week's Haftorah portion from Joshua. So something to think about, those times in our lives when we feel small or we feel little, that we should never preface our questions by saying this is a dumb question, and that we should always know that all of us, every human being has insecurities, has weaknesses, but they are ours to overcome. They are ours to work through, and they are ours to ultimately prevail against. Remember Joshua and Caleb. Okay, Lori's going to be blessing our Torah today, but I'm going to call her by her Hebrew name. Talmud. Chava Sadja Bat Chaye Sarah. I still have to find the spot. Okay. I'm not in a hurry either. We've got the room. Oh, that's last week's parsha. That I know. Okay, let's see here. We're going to do a Vayidaber Adonai Moshe Lemor Shalach Lecha. Okay. Oh, it's a Vayidaber. I was looking at the Vayomers. So, let's find a Vayidaber. No, that's not it. I wish that was it. Shalach Lecha. That's cool. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to find you the general vicinity, and then I'm going to read it out of the book. So why don't you touch right around here. Whoop, sorry.
Sorry.
I have the blessing under there, right there.
Baruch Adonai Hamavrach.
Baruch Adonai Ambarach Le'elam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamavrach Le'elam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bahar Banu Mikol Hamim Ve'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe le'emor, shalach lecha anashim, vayaturu et eretz Canaan, asher ani noten livnei Israel, ish echad lamate avotav, tishlachu kol nashim bahem. Vayishlach otam Moshe mimidbar paran, al pi Adonai, kulam anashim roshe b'nei Israel, hema. And God spoke to Moses and said, send forth men and appoint heads of each tribe, to appoint a man to go or take from each tribe one person to go to the land of Israel, to send them forth, all of them, to the Midbar. Moses sends them through the Midbar, through the Negev desert, from Paran, at the command of God. All of them, each head of the tribe, went forth.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'haye olam nata b'tohenu, Baruch atah Adonai, notain ha-Torah.
Amen. Yeshar koach. Thank you. Please stand for a moment as we lift the Torah to be redressed. Vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai be'ad Moshe. Elebeinu v'taher lebeinu v'taher lebeinu le'avdecha b'emet v'taher lebeinu v'taher lebeinu v'taher lebeinu le'avdecha b'emet yalai yalalai yalalalalai 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 v'taher lebeinu v'taher lebeinu v'taher lebeinu le'avdecha b'emet. Please remain standing so that we can ask for God's healings and blessings on our loved ones who are in need of our prayers on this Shabbat for healing. If you'd like to type in the name of a loved one online in the comments section, please do so. If you'd like to say the name of a loved one out loud, please say their name at this time as well. Eitan Baruch ben Michal. Mishaberach Avatenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Mimotenu Saruf Goracha v'Leah Hu Yivarech v'Yirapeh Tacholim Yakirenu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem Lachlimam L'Rafotam L'Hachziakam v'Yishlach Aleihem Refuah Shlema Min Hashamayim Refuah Tanefesh Refuah Taguf Hashta Ba'agala V'Zman Kariv V'Nomar Amen. May God, who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bring blessings of healing to all of our loved ones, those whose names we have written and thought of, those who are in our hearts. May God send them all a complete and speedy recovery of mind and body and spirit. As together we say, Amen. Please be seated. So as I mentioned, the Torah portion is linked to this week's Haftorah portion, which comes from the book of Joshua. Just as Moses commands scouts to go into the land of Israel, so too does Joshua, which is the sixth book of Torah, ask for people to go check out the land of Israel as well. And we can see, we're going to read Haftorah in English today, just so we can see how the Torah portion report and the Haftorah portion report differ and how they're the same, and how they're different in some ways. They take place about 38 years apart. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah uv'Moshe avdo v'Yisrael amo v'nvei hamet v'tzedek. We are in chapter 2 of the book of Joshua, verse 1. So Joshua, the son of Nun, secretly, this time it's in secret, sent only 2 spies to Shittim, saying, "Go explore the countryside of Jericho." When they got to Jericho, they came to the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. They're already getting in trouble. The brothel is typically at the entrance of the kingdom of the city. That is sort of a motif, is that there's typically a brothel somewhere. Hi, welcome to town, and away you go, right? Take care of whatever you need to take care of. Some told the king of Jericho that some Israelites had come at night to spy. So he sent word to Rahab. "The men who have just arrived are in your house, have come to spy out the whole country. Bring them out." But instead, the woman had taken the 2 men and hid them. So she answered, "Yes, indeed, the men did come, but I didn't know who they were or where they were from. They left as it was getting dark, just before the city gates were about to close." You had to close the gates at nighttime, just like you close your garage door and lock your front door at nighttime. They did the same with the gate of the city. Actually, she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under some stalks of flax that she had arranged for herself. The pursuers went as far as Jordan, as far as the fords, and as soon as they left the town, the gate was shut. Before the spies settled down for the night, Rahab went up to them on the roof and said to them, I know that the Eternal, that is the capital E, Eternal, has given you this land. Dread of you has fallen on us, and all the inhabitants of this land are scared to death of you. Word got out that the Israelites were kind of bad, like bad in a good way. We have heard that the Eternal dried up the waters of the Red Sea. Stories were, again, I joked this morning at Torah study, it's sort of like Game of Thrones, right? That someone sent a message and told them that they had dried up the Red Sea and that they had beat up on all of these kings in Egypt and in Shihon and in Og and the Amorites. Our hearts sank as soon as we heard about it, and because of you, our spirits are low. For the Eternal, your God, is God in heaven above all earth. Swear by the Eternal that you will treat my family as well as I have treated you, and give me a sign I can trust you, that you will save my father and my mother, my brother and my sisters, and all their families, save us from death. And the men respond, we give our lives for yours. As long as you do not betray what we have been doing, we shall treat you well and faithfully when the Eternal gives us this land. So in the Torah portion, the spies are the ones that get scared and nervous and fearful. In the Haftorah portion, the inhabitants are the ones who are scared of the Israelites. And God knows this when the 12 spies went in, and that's probably also why God didn't want them to go in, because God knew how the Torah was going to lead in the Haftorah and how that story was going to play out. But it reminds us that the stories of what the Israelites' 40-year journey was, from Egypt, from the plagues, from what happened at Mount Sinai, all of the word was out, and everyone in Jericho was scared of them. And so they get hidden. Selfishly, Rahab wants protection from the Israelites, and the men say, okay, as long as you don't jump, pile on against us, as long as you don't join the Jerichoites, we're going to protect you. We've got your back. You saved us, and we're going to save you. So it's so interesting how the opposite effect happens. The spies are the ones who are filled with vigor and strength. They're probably giants in the eyes of these people. And the people of Jericho are the ones who are scared because they've heard the story of the Jews. It would have been nice had the Israelites believe that about themselves in the Torah portion. Then maybe, as we discussed this morning in Torah study, maybe they would have ultimately made it into the land of Israel, been allowed to enter. So keep reading Joshua. It's a great book. I can't recommend it enough. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot. Ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, ha'mdaber u'mkayem, she'kol devarav, emet v'tzedek, ala Torah ve'ala avodah, v'al v'im b'yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha v'limnucha, lechavod u'tifaret, al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach umvarachim otach, yiparach shimcha befi kol chai, tamid leolam va'ed, baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat. I forget to take sips of water from time to time. When's the Cantor back? 2 weeks? 3 weeks? Although this is fun, don't get me wrong. We'll take a moment now to return the Torah to the Aron HaKodesh, page 374 or 256, and together let's stand. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizgav Shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayaren keren le'al Chasidav Livnei Israel Am Kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Eitz Chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomcheha meushar deracheha darkeno am v'chol netivoteha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh chadesh yameinu chadesh yameinu kekedem. Oh, I like to leave it open for Aleinu. Kick it old school reform. Aleinu, page 586, 282. Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon HaKol, latet gedula leotzeh breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei aratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei amlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu notei shamayim v'yoser haaretz umoshav yikaro b'shamayim ima'al ushchinatu zo begov hemeromim hu Eloheinu enod emet malkeinu efes ulato kakatuv betorato v'yadata yom v'ashevota elevavecha Ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim imal ve'al haaretz mitachat enod v'nemar v'haya Adonai lamelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. The Shabbat, remember those of our congregational family whose yahrzeits occur this week. Their names are lovingly listed in our Shabbat leaflet. If you would like to say out loud the name of a loved one you would like us to take into our hearts with our own, or type in the name of a loved one on the comments section online, please do so at this time. Zichroneim levracha, may their memories all be for a blessing. 598, 294, Mourner's Kaddish. Yit kadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, be'amad yivrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Israel, ba'agala v'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevorach le'olam u'le'omei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudsha brichu ve'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to those who are grieving. As together we say, Amen. We will now conclude with Ein Kelohenu and then Kiddush and Hamotzi. 626 or 322 for Ein Kelohenu. Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Chelohenu, Mi Chadonenu, Mi Chemalkenu, Mi Chamoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. V'shamru v'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. החיים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ. אמן. Shabbat shalom.